welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something, well, pretty complex and often seen differently depending on who you ask. The U.S. labor market during Donald Trump's presidency. Our mission here is simple. Boil down the key insights from the sources you shared so you get the full picture and fast.
It really is a story that changes quite dramatically depending on when you're looking. So we'll explore both the strong periods and, the more recent challenges. We want to cover all the angles from the material impartially.
Yeah, exactly. Get ready for some surprising details, maybe a few moments along the way. Okay, so let's start with the now, or almost now, August 2025. What did that look like for jobs?
Well, August 2025, the labor market pretty much hit the brakes. Only 22,000 jobs added. That's way, way down from the average of nearly 200,000 just a few months earlier.
Wow, 22,000. That's barely moving. And unemployment.
It ticked up, rose to 4.3%, which is actually the highest it's been since late 2021. And you also have to look at the revisions to previous months. They showed a weaker picture, too.
Right, the revisions. I saw June was actually revised down to a net loss of jobs.
That's right, a loss of 13,000 jobs in June. That was the first monthly loss since December 2020. And it means the 3-month average for job gains just plummeted. Went from 196,000 down to only 29,000.
So a really significant slowdown then.
Absolutely. It really marks a kind of turning point after the pandemic recovery phase. If you take out the pandemic weirdness itself, this is basically the slowest the labor market's been since 2010. It puts things in perspective.
And inevitably, when you see a slowdown like that, people start asking why. What are economists pointing to?
Well, many are drawing a line between this recent weakness and certain administration policies. Specifically, things like tariffs and the, let's say, aggressive immigration crackdowns are often cited. They're seen as driving up costs and messing with the labor supply.
Okay, let's unpack that. Tariffs first. How did they play out?
The argument is that they made it tough for businesses to plan ahead, and to hire. Manufacturing seems particularly affected. It lost 12,000 jobs just in August and 78,000 over the whole year.
78,000 jobs gone in manufacturing. That's substantial.
It is. And some analysts didn't mince words. One called it a disappointment that confounded hopes of a tariff-led reshoring renaissance. Basically, the hope that tariffs would bring lots of manufacturing back didn't quite pan out according to those numbers.
Okay, and the other factor you mentioned was the immigration crackdown.
Right, so there's some preliminary Census Bureau data. Pew Research Center analyzed it. It suggests something like 1.2 million immigrants vanished from the labor force between January and July.
1.2 million, that's a huge number. Where would that hit hardest?
You really see it in sectors that rely heavily on immigrant labor. Think farming, that's about 45% immigrant workforce, and construction, too, around 30%. So contractors have apparently found it much, much harder to find the skilled workers they need. It disrupts the whole supply chain.
Okay, so you have these challenging numbers coming out, the slowdown, the policy links. How did President Trump himself react to this data, especially from the BLS?
Well, his response was quite pointed. He repeatedly claimed the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers were rigged or manipulated. He made these claims without providing evidence, and it all led up to him firing the BLS commissioner, Erica McEntarfer.
Firing the BLS commissioner. That definitely raises questions about data integrity. What's the counter-argument?
The counterpoint from economists and also fact-checking groups is pretty consistent. They state that the BLS routinely revises its data. It's a standard process. As more complete information comes in, they adjust the initial estimates. It's not seen as manipulation.
So revisions are normal, basically.
Exactly. They cite examples like back in August 2024, there was a big revision, 818,000 jobs, but that was part of a standard annual review process. Completely normal procedure, not, evidence of anything nefarious.
Got it. Okay, so that's the recent picture. To really understand the whole story, we probably need to rewind, right? Back to the first term, pre-pandemic.
Absolutely. It's crucial context. He came into office inheriting an economy that was already on a long upswing.
Right, the Obama-era recovery. How long had that been going?
75 straight months of job growth leading up to his inauguration. And that momentum continued for a while. By the end of 2019, before COVID hit, nearly 6.7 million jobs had been added during his presidency.
And unemployment was famously low then.
Historically low. It hit 3.5% in 2019, a 50-year low. And you saw record lows for specific groups, too. African Americans, Hispanic Americans, even folks without a high school diploma. Plus, for the first time ever recorded, there were actually more job openings than there were unemployed people looking for work.
That's a tight labor market. What about wages during that time?
That's another key piece. Annual nominal wage growth finally hit 3%, first time it did that since the Great Recession. And importantly, wages for those historically disadvantaged groups, they were actually growing faster than the average.
And policy-wise, the big thing then was the tax cut, right?
The
2017.
Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, yeah, largest in U.S. history at the time. The idea was to spur investment, create jobs. The White House pushed projections of, $2,100 to $3,300 raises annually per worker because of it.
But did economists generally agree with that assessment long-term?
There was definitely debate. Some economists felt the effects were more temporary, famously calling it a short-lived sugar high for the economy rather than a fundamental long-term boost.
Right. And then, of course, everything changed.
Completely. The COVID-19 pandemic just upended that entire economic picture, and ultimately it led to President Trump being the first modern president to actually leave office with fewer jobs in the economy than when he started. A really dramatic reversal.
So summing this all up, what's the main thing you want listeners to take away from this deep dive?
I think the key takeaway is just how nuanced and frankly complex this story is. You can't just look at one number or one period. You have this period of pre-pandemic strength, followed by really significant recent challenges. And policy and global events deeply impacted both phases.
Yeah, it's definitely not a simple narrative.
Not at all. It really underscores how economic landscapes get shaped by so many things working together. Policies, yes, but also huge external shocks like a pandemic. Understanding all those different phases, those different forces at play is just crucial if you want the complete picture.
Okay, so maybe a final thought for you, our listeners, to chew on. How might future economic policies try to balance those immediate incentives for growth with the need for long-term stability,
Right.
especially when, the whole world's economy is so connected? Something to think about.